TommyRants RV here. Before I get into the purpose and content of today's video, I was just going to wrap up the heat strip saga of mine because I did a couple of videos on it. And just as a recap, the heat strip that was in my Coleman Mach 8 when I got the trailer brand new was bad. It worked sometimes, but it would only stay hot for a short period of time. Put the new one in, it's working beautifully. I have faith now in the heat strip in the Coleman Mach 8. It works very well. I use it every day now. So I'm happy with that. The purpose of today's video and the content of it will be about mistakes made. And this is one big particular mistake I made, which somewhat embarrassing. It's been on the back burner that I do a video about this eventually. And, you know, I've been thinking lately about the purpose of my channel. And the purpose, let me start here. In the run-up to getting my Casita, because I started my YouTube channel in September of 2020. I didn't even have my trailer yet till April of 21. And I watched hundreds of videos about RVs, but particularly Casita. I watched all of the CasitaTravelTrailer.com videos with Jonathan and Victor, and I paid attention. And I watched other videos by people with Casitas, and I learned a lot. I learned a hell of a lot. I didn't put everything I learned into practice because within 2 weeks of getting my Casita, I made a grave error of which I was not aware until 8 months later. The way that came about was I live pretty close to the factory, so I did not take an immediate weekend trip right after I brought the trailer. I was more concerned with getting it home and getting it hooked up here and making sure that was going to work. I'd bought a Honda 2200 generator and, you know, some other things to make sure that no matter what happened, I'd be able to operate the trailer. And I did that. And a couple of weeks later, I took my first trip. It was just a one-nighter. Went to a lake that's not far away. It was in 1st of May, so it wasn't cold. Didn't get an opportunity to check out the heat strip that night, but I used everything else: the air conditioner, hot water, shower, cold water, you know, all the biggies, propane, fridge, all that. And everything worked very well. When I was at a state park and I had to go to a dump station when I left. I had never done that before, but I felt like I probably knew everything I needed to know. I did kind of. Luckily, there was a guy there that helped me with that, and just to give me a little more insight. And he spent about 45 minutes with me and helped me out. The point about the videos is that when I watched all these videos, particularly about Casitas, one thing struck me, and that was that, and I'm not accusing anybody here. I'm not belittling anybody. I'm not saying I'm better. I'm definitely not an authority on Casitas or much of anything else. But what I was missing when I watched many of those channels was kind of the real rough, bad side of owning a trailer, because it can be challenging. And so I wanted to do more than just, you know, I love Casita, rah, rah, isn't this great? Because, you know, there are events that occur between buying it and using it and etc. that come up. And I wanted to include those on my channel, so here's a biggie that I almost ruined at least one component, maybe two in the trailer, without even knowing I'd done anything wrong, although I should have been aware of it. I took that first trip. It was just a one-nighter, used the water, all that stuff, like I said, and I was thorough, I thought, in evacuating the water out of the system before I left that park. I opened the faucets up, you know, drained everything out after the hose was unhooked and all that. What I did not do was pull my anode rod out and drain the water heater. So I came home, rehooked back up. During the ensuing 6 or 7 months, I was still working 50 miles from home. So my trailer was parked here in the driveway. I was kind of making improvements and changes here and there, but it wasn't until I got the mobile office thing set up by the company I work for that I started, you know, being willing to travel with it and stuff like that, because I didn't want to set this thing up as just a camper for me when I still had to accommodate office equipment. So eventually that all came together, and I decided right around New Year's of 2021, so I was a few, it was 8 months after that first trip about. And I went on a camping trip, a 4-day one. My son joined me for it. He wasn't there the whole time. He was staying nearby, so he visited every day. We had a great time. But I could not get any hot water to come out for my morning shower. And the galley faucet would not even turn, no water would come out there. Luckily the shower was working and the sink in the bathroom, but nothing else. And it was cold water only. So after that happened the first morning, I started, you know, and I worked on that trip too. So I was working basically from 8 or 9 till 4 each day. And it was hard for me to put in mind all the components and figure out what might have gone wrong. Never thinking about the fact that I had never drained the water heater. In my mind, you know, I'd used it that one night on that one trip, and then I didn't use it anymore. Therefore, in my oblivious way of thinking, I wasn't using it. As I found during that 8 months, it was deteriorating under one single, you know, load of water, 6 gallons in the tank that just sat there for 8 months. So while on the trip, I started talking to my son about it when he'd come by, and like the second night, he said, "Have you checked the aerator on your kitchen faucet?" I said, "No, you know, that could maybe be blocking, but I got a bigger problem than that. I'm getting water everywhere else. Why am I not getting it there?" Well, as I began troubleshooting in my mind over the next couple of days, it got to a point where I was flustered over that, still working, accepted the fact I was going to take a cold shower each morning, so I developed a routine for that. So for 3 days in a row, I took cold showers, and it wasn't painful, but it was uncomfortable. The aftermath as much as the during the shower. So then I brought it home. There's a blessing at the end of this story. It turned out to be a good fortune that this happened in a way. When I got home and could, you know, settle down a little bit, because I was still nervous about camping at that point, and, you know, hauling the trailer and all little aspects of it, especially in light of the fact that I couldn't even get the hot water working. Now I'm thinking, well, what else have I done wrong? Anyway, I got home, and I thought back, and I don't remember if I watched another video, because I already knew what I needed to do. It didn't occur to me that I needed to do it at that point, which was just asinine. But I did figure it out, and I think the next day after I got home, I unscrewed that. The system was evacuated, unscrewed except the water heater. I unscrewed that anode, and the bottom of that water heater I let it drain. It was full of white rocks. I'm talking about sugar cube size, irregular shapes, but roughly the size of sugar cubes. And there were, gosh, I want to say hundreds of them. Maybe not hundreds that big, but total, definitely hundreds, because I had everything from little pebble, tiny pebble size, up to, you know, almost the equivalent of a 1/2-inch cube. And so I start piecing together as I'm fixing this what had happened. I get the thing all flushed, I get it all cleaned out, and I decided, just for the heck of it, I was going to turn the water on and see what happened, and knowing that I'd not done the final step. Turned it on, no water coming out of the kitchen sink, hot or cold. All right, then shut it down and everything, took the aerator off. And it was surprising because there was just a couple of little tiny specks down in that aerator. It's a little crappy little plastic piece with some little jet holes through it. One or more holes, I forget. It was clogged. So my son was right. You know, to an extent, I probably could have had running water at the sink during that trip. Although I was much more grateful of it. I only had it one place. The shower was the good place. And it's also fortunate that before that trip, New Year's leading into this year, 2022, we didn't have any major cold snaps that affected it, obviously, because it's working now. So the bad thing was, you know, I felt stupid. I ordered a anode rod from Casita, which was not the brightest, you know, best thing to do, because they're with shipping, I think it's $7 or $10 more to do that than it is to get it on Amazon or something. But I at this point, I want to make sure I had the right thing. And so, you know, after putting that in, cleaning out the aerator, and once again flushing the system completely. I bought hose attachment and do that and everything. Got it all out, all the remaining little pebbles. They're little white pebbles and big ones. Got it all out of the system. And of course it worked fine after that. What I didn't know, and it's a good thing I did it then, because fast forward a month into February, we had a hellacious storm down here, for our part of the country anyway. And it got down to what, 0, 1, 2, everything was freezing, people had power out. And had I left that water in the tank and never gone on that trip a few weeks earlier, I would have still had, kind of unbeknownst to me, even though I should have known, that full tank of water in there with all the debris in there from the anode rod corrosion. And I'm sure my water heater would have cracked, the tank would have cracked. Yeah, any pipes leading into it, maybe. I don't know the extent of what could have happened, but at the very least, that water tank could have been shot, which means I'd need a new water heater, the labor, the logistics of setting all that, getting all that done while I'm trying to work every day would have been a real nightmare. So things can happen that you're not aware of until much later. And I've had a ton of them in my life. I always try and look on the bright side at the end. And the bright side for this one was that I got it done before the real serious freeze happened. And hopefully that's the end of that story. I now keep the bypass. I have it bypassed plumbing wise, and also have it turned off at the breaker. Because I don't use the water cold or hot at home. So my system should be cleaned out and ready to go for next time. New anode rod. It's bone dry in there, but I will check it nonetheless next time I use it. And that's the end of the story for today. That's not one I was eager to tell, but I'm doing it in the interest of showing things that happen. And which is what I wanted to do when I started the channel. And, you know, I talk about what I know, and this is one of the things I knew, but I didn't know because I just didn't have the experience, even though everything I'd seen pointed to drain that thing every time you use it. I somehow forgot about the every time you use it part. And that's the end of that story. I'm sure I'll be doing other videos on stupid stuff I've done, but that one stands out more than any of the others. Nice visiting. TommyRants RV. Have a good rest of the day, and we will be seeing you soon.